Hello everybody, James here. Hope you doing well out there today. Well, I'm about to show you a video. Unlike any other video, it's a two-part video about black importation, and it's going to seem why does it paint the stereotype about black people. And I'm going to play a short, not too much of these videos, but I'm going to start with this video.
Relaunch subscription.
Bro, why you send this to me? You trying to get me canceled again? I know you are, bro. It's all good. We're here, right? Alright, so the name of this video is Black American Culture is Dying. People from the ghetto, let's say, are to blame. Let's have this conversation. There's a suggestion via Discord, guys.
Here is my little 2 cents that nobody asked for. I am sick of seeing Black Americans in the media, on social media, in the news, doing crime, walking around next to naked the women, the men perpetuating gang violence, substance abuse. The absolute worst of our community is oversaturating the media, even though they make up a small percentage of all of Black Americans.
Boom. Guys, that's solid. Here's the thing. Listen, her statement is absolutely true here. Unfortunately, right? The interesting part is it's not specifically indicative of Black American culture exclusively. The absolute worst of every single culture is amplified. All right, that's just the reality of things, right? If you look at, if you're one of these individuals who don't like a specific gender, let's say, right? You can, trust me, find reasons for that looking on TikTok. All right, you definitely can move my camera a little bit. Like, you absolutely can find reasons to strongly join like those MGTOW guys and those super ultra red pill guys. You can definitely find that on TikTok with all the women that generally openly say they strongly detest anything male oriented. If that makes any sense, right? You can definitely find reasons, and the issue here is, yeah, bro. For some reason, Black American culture is like the only a culture in the United States of America that absolutely promotes exclusively the worst of the worst of the worst people, bro. Alright? Yeah, that's reality.
Oversaturating the media, even though they make up a small percentage of all of Black Americans. The decay of our morality within Black communities has been slowly declining over the past 20 years, and no one is talking about it, no one is saying anything about it or trying to address it. And if you do, you are often told that you're policing Black bodies. If you say Black women, stop getting on the internet and in the media, twerking, walking around with little clothes on. People tell you that you're policing bodies, policing Black bodies, or it's respectability politics. If you are Black and you speak your piece on what we're seeing in the media, if you don't like seeing the low morality that is often portrayed about the Black community in the media, from the trap music to the Black women twerking in music videos and all over social media, the Sukihanas and the Sexy Reds of the world. If you are Black and you take issue with it and you talk about it, you are usually called bourgeois, sedity, uppity, it's respectability politics, you're policing Black bodies and the like. And it's like, no, I'm Black too. And as such, this being my ethnic culture as well, I have a right to have something to say about what I'm seeing going on. The average Black American is a middle-class, working-class, blue-collar Jane and Joe. The ghetto subculture, Black ghetto subculture that we see often portrayed and over-inundated and oversaturating the media, those Black Americans make up a tiny, tiny percentage of Black Americans as a whole. But somehow they're in the media, overcompensating in the media, oversaturating the media. I know I don't just speak for myself when I say that I'm sick of seeing it.
Absolutely. You're not wrong. Okay. Yeah, she's not. There's nothing that she has said that is wild, right? But here's the thing. There's almost like a very specific reason for it, and I just cannot put my finger on it, right? Like, so for example, I know because the last time someone sent me something like this, YouTube punished me for posting it, right? So keep that in mind here, right? And what I mean by punishing me, what they did was they limited the video. They said that the video targeted one group, and like I was like at risk of basically being taken off the internet again, right? Because apparently I'm not allowed to say this, what that she's saying, right? I mean, the reality is, I do not know anyone that looks like me, that acts like how I see people that look like me act on social media. I don't see those. I don't know any of those people, right? And so when she's saying that it's an absolute minority, it is, right? They're pretty much localized into like one area, right? And they're going to be, for the most part, in a lot of the inner cities, right? Those cultures cannot dictate what I'm guessing her or I actually experience on a regular basis, or how we interact with the world, right? I say, because again, I don't have the same experience as someone from the inner city, even though I was, born and raised in New York, but Long Island, right? My experience is completely different, so I don't know any of these crazy twerking mad men and women. I don't know any of those people, bro. That's not my experience. But they're the ones that get generally pushed to the masses, right? They're the ones that, unfortunately, Black American culture tends to idolize. Mm-hmm. They idolize the most debaucherous of the bunch. Bro, I'm not protecting Cosby or R. Kelly. I'm not playing his music. I'm not a weirdo. Guys, come on. Either way, there's a lot more than that, but you get what I mean.
Put this under your tongue to rise up whenever you want today. I will reveal...
Now, where does a man and a woman that you see on the video, where they come from? Well, there's a part of America that don't want to show you. Let's go back to their genealogy. This is what she wants to see.
Throughout history, there has been a harmful notion that black individuals are intellectually inferior to their white counterparts. It was never their fault, as white people used pseudo-scientific theories to justify their subjugation of black people. One such example is eugenics, with Paul Brandon Barringer stating that there was an absolute limit to African Americans' biological and social advancement. Barringer believed that under the conditions of slavery, black individuals had advanced beyond their natural selection through selective breeding by slave owners. In other words, these theories claimed that black people were intellectually inferior to white people, often citing physical differences in skull shape or size as supposed evidence.
Still to this
As
day.
such, these ideas were used to justify the oppression of black people and to deny them access to many opportunities. Even after the abolition of slavery and the civil rights movement, these harmful stereotypes still appeared and persisted. They continue to be perpetuated through media, education systems, and everyday interactions. But time and time and again, black individuals have proven the opposite. They have constantly shown remarkable intelligence and ability to reach never-before-seen levels of innovation. So today, we will be acknowledging 20 of the most intelligent black people and their contribution to humankind. Give this video a like to show your support and subscribe to always be part of our insightful discussions. With that, let's begin.
My problem was to answer questions. And I did that to the best of my ability at all times.
Her journey began back in 1939 at West Virginia State College, where she made history as the first black student at the institution. After taking some time to focus on raising her family, Johnson joined the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics in 1953 before making the leap to NASA. And boy, did she make her mark there. In NASA's Space Task Group, Johnson was able to make a lasting impact, co-authoring engineering papers and debriefing missions. Her precise calculations were absolutely vital in missions like Freedom 7 and Friendship 7, ensuring the safe journey of astronauts like Alan B. Shepard Jr. and John Glenn into space. Even though she passed away in 2020 at the remarkable age of 101, Katherine Johnson's brilliance and pioneering spirit will continue to inspire generations to come. for plants earned him the nickname the Plant Doctor. Growing up, he had limited access to education as a slave. But did that stop him? Not at all. He went on to become the first ever African American to earn bachelor's and master's degrees in science from Iowa State University. Booker T. Washington recognized Carver's incredible talent and offered him a prestigious position at Tuskegee University in Alabama. There, Carver made history with his remarkable research on crop rotation techniques, helping to replenish soil nutrients after harvests. He also championed the cultivation of soybeans, peanuts, and sweet potatoes to boost soil fertility and ensure plenty of food for everyone. To top it off, Carver even led the charge in using carbon to supercharge crop growth and fight climate change. Impressive, right? Despite facing heavy discrimination early on, Julian became a star student and even graduated as valedictorian from DePaul University in Indiana. But despite earning master's and doctorate degrees from top-notch institutions like Harvard and the University of Vienna, Julian still had to deal with racial prejudice, which held him back from becoming a professor. However, it seems that he was bound to shine wherever he went. Julian went on to become the laboratory director at Glidden Company, where he invented aerofoam, a soy-based foam that could put out oil and gas fires. In 1954, he founded Julian Laboratories and became one of the first black millionaires in the process. Even though he faced some tough times, Julian's legacy lives on through the Julian Research Institute, where he continued to do groundbreaking work until he passed away in 1975. His contributions to science are of high importance, even if they're not always as widely recognized as they should be. Even when faced with prejudice and gender bias, she never let anything stop her from reaching her educational goals. By 1956, she had earned both bachelor's and master's degrees in mathematics. As a mathematician at the US Naval Proving Ground, West teamed up with her future husband, Ira V. West, to tackle some seriously remarkable projects. The works of this power duo were quite significant for missions related to Pluto, Neptune, and even the management of a US Navy Ocean Surveillance Satellite Initiative. Even though West is often overlooked because of her race and gender, she is a true hero and asset in the scientific community. She's not just brilliant in math, she also holds advanced degrees in public administration and has racked up plenty of awards, like the Prince Philip Medal and induction into the US Air Force Hall of Fame.
I invented a new internet that is a new supercomputer.
Also known as the Bill Gates of Africa, is known for his intellect, surpassing even the intelligent.
We'll buy your house for cash, no matter the condition.
At Lemonade, we're changing insurance, starting with clearly explaining how it works. Our renter's insurance policy.
When we look at racism, white supremacy, and you really study it, it is motivated by fear. The fear of if black people take over, then it's not going to be the same for us anymore. If black people take over, we're not going to have the privileges that we have today. And we're so used to these privileges. We've been raised to be told this is our God-given right to have this particular privilege over everyone else. We know the only group in America who can challenge that privilege and literally destroy it is black Americans. Case in point, I want you to watch this video of, this, southern white woman kind of explaining this point.
There was a real fear that if you let blacks get control, everything would change. With some people, there was no idea that there would be any fairness or any democracy or anything decent, well-run city government, county government, whatever. It was like, if this happens, we're lost. And it was just a terrible fear. Politicians, even people who knew better, would have been willing to go further personally or to have the state move forward, were always bound by fear of not getting reelected. And so really people who knew better just stuck with racism for political reasons is what I think. But a lot of it, just in average citizens, was just that people didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to help.
The part that really kind of I want to point out a little bit more as well on top of what she said is she pointed out the politicians. She said a lot of the politicians know a lot of this stuff isn't right, but they continue it going just so they can get reelected. So they continue racism just for selfish reasons, even though deep in their heart they know, hey, this stuff isn't right. But see, this is the thing. When we look at something like reparations, when we look at any kind of, anti-black hate crime bill or anything like that, right? The majority of them know deep in their heart we deserve those things. They know that. But their greatest fear is losing privilege. Their greatest fear is, as many have told me over the years, our greatest fear is you would do to us, and when they were saying not me personally, but we as a collective of people would do to them what they did to us. That's their greatest fear. Now, let's go deep into that fear. You had a chance to stop doing what you were doing to us, and you chose not to. Even today, 2024, you have a choice right now to make things right by saying, you know what? I didn't have nothing to do with slavery. I didn't do Jim Crow. I didn't do the black codes. I wasn't part of the Klan. I didn't bomb no churches. I didn't steal black people's land. I didn't do any of that. But I understand the reason why today is the blame is still being laid at my feet, even though I didn't have nothing to do with it, is because I'm living on a privilege in a system that was maintained through all of that. So just as much as I inherited all of this privilege and all of this wealth that came to us as a collective, you also got to inherit the collective shame, you got to inherit the collective guilt, and you got to inherit the collective judgment that comes along with that. And that's the problem with many of them don't like, they inheriting that. So this is why when someone in 2024 say, hey, reparations need to be paid, well, why should I have to pay? I didn't have this and then the third. You have to pay because you inherited the privilege and wealth that came through all of that. That's the thing. And you're not saying, you know what, let's go it on and pay reparations. Let's go it on and change America fundamentally so this country can be equal to everybody. Because see, black people aren't asking for supremacy. Black people are saying for equality. That's all they're asking for. That's it. I want to be treated equal. I don't want my businesses sabotaged. I don't want my education sabotaged. I don't want my children sabotaged in education where you can sit up there and put them in prison. I want to just be treated equally. I want the same. I want Whole Foods in my neighborhood. I want high quality gyms in my neighborhood. I want dog parks. I want all kind of nice things that we have, trails and all kind of events and all these things that you have in your areas. We want the exact same thing, right? We want the police the exact same way that they police in your area. How they police in your area? They're not targeting people. They're not doing anything. They are not allowing certain elements to come into your community. Even people within your own community, they don't allow certain of them even come in. They make sure certain characters stay out. They talk about law and order, but they allow crime to go on in black communities. Because when they want to gentrify it, all that quote-unquote crime gets out there real quick because the police actually do their job. You understand what I'm saying? Black Americans are saying equality. But as long as you run around here talking about why should you have to pay reparations, then you are laying yourself up in the judgment. And let me tell you something. What you complaining right now about the economy and saying, some of you saying now, I see how black Americans feel. And all this time, black Americans been saying that. See, the thing is, black Americans been telling you, but you didn't care because you was getting your money and living in your privilege. Now you walking into a day and time that your privilege won't save you. And listen, you can put Donald Trump in office next go round. You're still not going to be saved. It is ordained what's happening to you in particular to happen. Your global influence is constantly decreasing. People aren't respecting you in the world anymore by the things that you have done, right? Not because people just woke up one day and felt that way. People are paying attention to the oppression of the past and the oppression of the current state. People have looked at what you've done to black Americans, what you've done to Africans, what you've done to Caribbean people, what you're doing to black folks in Latin America. People's paying attention to that. And you try to hide history. I'm talking about definitely your politicians, Ron DeSantis. You're trying to hide history. You cannot hide history. We have the internet.
It's passed down.
And not everybody even look at public school as a way to being educated, because that's a way of being indoctrinated. You're trying everything you can to try to slow down the global awakening about you. But everybody is just about woke up to you now. And they are hip to you. You understand? So your best bet, because listen, the world's changing. I know a lot of you see this coming and you don't like it, you feel uncomfortable. You know, you feel uncomfortable because you're not going to be the physical majority, especially in America. It's going to be a change. It's definitely going to be a change for you. But you know what? I can tell you as a person that lived in a country that you are the maybe numerical minority to something, you'd be all right. You'd be all right. You know, we had to sit up there and live with you. So you're going to have to learn how to live with others. It's just that simple. And you're not going to have the same privilege no more. And that's what you fear the most. You fear your privilege going away. And rightfully so. It should go away because you didn't earn it. If you earned it, then it would be okay. But see, all you had to do was share, just be equal with everybody. Then you would have nothing to fear. But you chose colonization. You chose slavery. You chose all these sort of things to do to people. You know, there's a judgment for that. I'm glad that black Americans don't have that judgment on us. I'm glad black Americans don't fear anybody like that, because we haven't done anything to anybody. We sit in a perfect position as a people. We have nothing to fear. But you, on the other hand, you know, and this is why so many of y'all want us to come save you. If it's not just your group, it's other groups, because we are the only group of people that has the moral capital for that. Even though we have some people that's degenerates, and think about the degenerates we have. Those degenerates was created by them. But the majority of black people aren't into no degeneracy like that. Our kids really didn't get into no degenerate state until they stopped black Americans from running their household like they normally run their household in the area of discipline. You understand? Because I remember when that came in. Where if your parents, if they discipline you, tell us, and we're gonna put child abuse charges on them. And that's why America's where it's at now. It's because of that, right there. Not because of instances of real abuse, and of course, people who abuse children children should be taken away, and parents should go to jail for that. We're not talking about instances of real abuse. We're talking about actual discipline. You understand what I'm saying? But they got that's their world they got to deal with, not us. So it's going to change.
Hi, my name is Tami, and I would like to give you a few reasons why you should consider.
Don't do that. Think that's cool. 40 acres in a mule. Fat Nellyville, 40 acres in a pool.
My brother did a bid, straight up. When they came home, we was rich, straight up. But 40 acres in a mule, they got 50 rats in a brand new seed.
Black Americans getting 40 acres and a mule after elections. We've all heard the phrase, but what if we told you that the 40 acres and a mule order could be used today? Here is something Trump said the other day.
Them to do whatever the hell they want. You gotta pay. You gotta pay your bills.
Well, what about the bills America owes to black people? Black families have had their land stolen through these taxes and racist domain policies, but no other government promise has had a more devastating effect than the 40 acres and a mule. As the Civil War was coming to an end in 1865, the U.S. government promised recently freed black folks that they could turn their life around. They would get 40 acres and a mule. They could have used this land to feed their families, work on it, and pass it on from generation to generation. The products they would have sold from it could help educate their children and create generational wealth. But then, black people were faced with a harsh reality. The 40-acre policy would never see the light of day. There was no way on earth that slave owners and pro-union Southerners would let something so radical change the face of America forever. So they got rid of the threat. They assassinated Lincoln and created a hell on earth for the black community. Why? Well, if the policy grew roots, it would have ignited a fire across all of U.S. soil, putting black people at the forefront of the economy. It's simple, really. Ever heard the saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Yeah, well, if people got the land they were owed, they could have become self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is dangerous, but it was more than that. Black people were tired of the way white folks treated them, so they wanted to create a state of only blacks, governed by blacks, and farmed by blacks. Who do you think was the best farmer, worker, and builder? Black people, of course. They never had the chance to live a normal life, except to work day and night. Their skills were impeccable. Work to survive, survive to work, over and over again.
When I was a little girl in the slave days, I always had something to do every day. Every day.
If blacks were allowed to create what effectively would be an ethno-state, they would have gained the upper hand in terms of economy. Of course, the white supremacists wouldn't let that happen. But what if we told you that this exact order would be worth at least $6.4 trillion today? Slavery made America wealthy, and racist policies have been blocking black people from building wealth for years. Its impact can still be felt today.
Farmers and other black landowners have repeatedly been targeted to have their property taken. Do you think that you would have been that much further ahead if you were one of your white counterparts?
Oh yes, we would not have lost the land. We would have gotten the loans and the services that all farmers should get through the government.
The question is, how would these reparations look now? People can't just seize land without compensation. This is not the Reconstruction period. The 40 acres and a mule promised black people that the Georgian coast and South Carolina would be left to them. Basically, a huge chunk of the South included the land that stretched from Charleston to the St. Johns River in Florida. The area was so massive that it would have had a detrimental impact on American families. There is no way to get that land back, even if it used to belong to black people. Does that mean reparations should be done via bond investments of their current values and then divide them between the descendants of slaves? Some people want land, others want money. But black families have been denied justice so many times because the laws were set against them. How would we solve the racial wealth gap and the damage it has done? Based on recent statistics, almost 6 in 10 black adults say their ancestors were enslaved.
Now, where did this mind, since they don't want to believe it, so why they feel that black people don't feel like they owe anything? Where did this mindset come from? And why do they feel like that? Well, let me show you something. You're gonna be shocked. Let me see. I'm gonna stop it right there. You're gonna be shocked what I'm about to show you, and how the past relates to the today. How does this past? And why do black people keep talking about this topic? It's going to go away. Why don't you just let it keep going? And America is already heading downhill, and this is one of the reasons why she's heading downhill. But yet, this is happening.
Newsflash, leftism doesn't work. Like, duh!
Frustration has spilled over in community meetings. Anger often directed at leadership, like the newly elected district attorney, who has been on the job just 7 months.
It's unreal.
I'm a black man, born and raised in Oakland. When I walk out the house every day, I want to be safe. So if that calls for whoever commits a crime to be prosecuted, so be it. but we want it to be fair and just.
Darren White is with the NAACP Oakland branch, which penned an open letter to their city, blaming failed leadership, the defund the police movement, and anti-police rhetoric for creating a heyday for Oakland criminals.
We're not trying to say, mass incarceration and arrest everyone. We want the people that are out here committing these violent crimes arrested and charged.
Do we need more cops on the street?
Yes, we do need more. Every community needs police.
Flanked by partners in the city, Oakland's interim police chief Darren Allison says Oakland is taking a comprehensive approach to fighting crime. They all say that the crime feels different now. Why is that?
So I think because it is pervasive, not just localized, or you may have historically seen maybe gang group violence, I think that feeling has become that it's everywhere.
From cops to crime prevention. Funded for 712 officers, Allison says he has 715 on staff.
So what we're seeing is changes in bail, changes in sentencing.
Are you saying you need tougher punishment on the back end?
It's everything. It's not just enforcement and punishment. I think accountability comes in many forms.
Grace and peace, you guys. April Chapman here with the Standard of Truth podcast, and I'm gonna just come on out and say it, right? Because I ain't never scared. Do we need another crime bill? Like, I'm just asking. And the reason why I want to talk about the 1994 crime bill, because my fellow conservatives, rightfully so, had sharp criticism for the current administration regarding all of the black folks that got locked up from that 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden helped author during the Clinton administration. And I understand how conservatives use that as a political point to garner support and to push against the opposition. And I get it. I understand how detrimental that 94 crime bill was. However, we are currently now living at a time when crime is out of control. You see here in the video that I've displayed that the city of Oakland is just wrought with crime, violent crime. The residents of the city no longer feel safe. And I find it funny that the NAACP, who was one of the main proponents of the defund the police movement, has now come out with a statement begging for more police presence and actually admitting on record that defunding the police was a bad idea. Now, we could have told you that, right? Those of us who still have blood flowing through our brains and the good sense that the good Lord gave us, we could have told you that. And when we tried to say, listen, defunding the police is not the answer, right, to a bad apple on a police force where an injustice may have occurred, instead of thinking in proper categories by saying, why can't we just deal with every incident on its own merit? No, instead, liberals wanted and went on a mass campaign to spread the message of defunding the police. And what did black folks do? They jumped on that bandwagon to their own detriment, and now in cities such as LA and Oakland and San Francisco and New York and even here in Atlanta, we are living in the craziest crime spurge that it has probably been the worst in my lifetime outside of the late 80s and early 90s before Rudy Giuliani came into office into New York City. So, here are a couple of points that I want to bring up. The NAACP is being hypocrites right now. I have been telling you that the NAACP, they are the gatekeepers. They're the ones that are actually committed to keeping black folks blinded and ignorant to the truth. For the NAACP to champion the defund the police movement, and then now that it is hit home to people living in this community, now all of a sudden they want to be like, well, I mean, I'm not saying we need to have mass incarceration, but we kind of do want the violent criminals to be locked up. Well, no kidding. That is all we've ever advocated. But in an effort to push your agenda, you have now put your people in harm's way, and now you're forced to actually walk back those statements. My question to you, NAACP, national and the local chapters, are you getting this message over to the likes of Ayanna Pressley or Cori Bush, all of the members of the squad, the AOCs? Are you preaching that same thing to them? Because those smart scholars are still advocating for defunding the police in some form or fashion. Now, I get it. People who are going to come and say, when we were talking about defund the police, we weren't saying less police. We were saying, let's just take some of that money from the police and divert it into social programs to maybe help individuals who are suffering from mental illness. Or maybe we could have the social workers show up when we're dealing with the situation where an individual might be violent and they're threatening. If we could just dispatch a social worker, they could kind of work alongside the police. I'm sorry, no. Criminals on some level cannot be reasoned with prior to you restraining them from inflicting harm on an individual. It requires a level of force to restrain a lunatic who is either flailing a gun or threatening bodily harm to innocent civilians. You need a strong and well-equipped, well-funded, well-trained police presence. I am sorry. Dispatching social workers and making sure that the mental health professional is on site when there's a violent crime occurring, or just someone just being a petty thief and wanting to carjack somebody or wanting to walk into somebody's business. I don't see how the social worker or the mental health professional is going to restrain the wickedness in such a person's heart. Let me just explain to you why I believe this is a prime example of a dereliction of duty from the government. Newsflash, I am a small government supporter. I'm not an anarchist where I don't want any government. I believe the government should play the rightful role as scripture outlines, which is to restrain the lawless and to punish the wicked doer. Let me go ahead and read something to you from Romans chapter 13. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. So here, government authorities, I recognize your God-ordained rightful place in my life as a believer and in society overall. I recognize that. The scriptures tell me that there is no authority except from God, and the power and the authority that you've been granted was given to you by the Most High. It also goes on to say, therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. Meaning, if you break the law and you resist the authority that has been put in place, you best to be prepared for the consequences that result. It then goes on to say, for rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Meaning, the governing authorities, such as the police, right, or even the military, they are not there unless you're doing something bad. They're not a terror to good conduct. If you're following the law and you're doing what you're supposed to do, you ain't got to worry about the police. But then it says, would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. The police have been given to us as a gift from God for our good. They are not the enemy. So the entire defund the police movement was retarded on the outset because it flied in the face of a declarative statement here that's like, listen, the police are really, they're not the bad guys. That's not saying that there's not wickedness bound up in the heart of a particular individual. That is true because the they're human. They are fallen, sons and daughters of Adam, which means the wickedness in their heart needs to be regulated and restrained too. That's why I always said, why can't we just punish the bad apples? Why do we have to just demonize all police? But my kinsman, according to the flesh, likes listening to the mainstream narrative that led you to believe that black folks was just getting tumbled and pummeled down in the street for no good reason at all. They didn't do nothing. They was just they were just murdering us for no reason, when we know that wasn't happening. But then the scripture goes, then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. The sword, the firearm, whatever instrument of restraint that the police are using, that could be a taser, that could be pepper spray. Whatever they are using, they exist, and they don't bear those weapons in vain, meaning they have them with the intent to use them if necessary. For he is a servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Well, now we are finding out that these wrongdoers are actually targeting law-abiding citizens. And now the citizens are speaking up. And now the NAACP is forced to go on record, at least this local chapter has, to say, you know what? I don't think defund the police was a good idea. Listen, at the end of the day, anti-police rhetoric puts a damper on the profession of policing. There was once a time in this country where being a police officer was an honorable job. It was an honest job. It was a respectable profession. But when you have heavy anti-police rhetoric from the left, all that does is hurt all the people at the bottom, the ones who live and work and are trying to thrive in their own communities. We need to restore confidence in the police again. We need to stop the anti-police rhetoric because it is hurtful. But this is why I say, when I tell you leftism doesn't work, leftist policies don't work, this fake kumbaya like utopia that leftism preaches about, it's unreal and it doesn't exist. You have to have a healthy balance between the law and the constituents. You do. You cannot have anarchy or be soft on crime. This is why the government exists, to restrain the lawbreaker and to punish the evildoer.
Now, where this mindset come from? Why are people? Because the biggest culprit is Hollywood.
Oh, hey, I'm your celebrity spokesperson for Z.
That paints the picture in people's head.
Sports and events from all over the country. But seems.
Do you think Hollywood is racist? Yes. Yes. Well, what else is new?
When you think about movies, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Hollywood?
Hollywood. Welcome to Hollywood.
We'll be blacklisted in Hollywood.
Hollywood, a place known for making dreams come true. From its inception, Hollywood was a place that had long exerted a powerful influence of American ideology. As moving images reflected our world, they also shared a prophetic vision, a magic mirror of the way that things are and the way things should be. But as American ideals typically go, this collective vision deteriorated into blindness, a cracked mirror of more than 100 years of bad luck, with the entertainment industry a spitting image of the roots from which it was created. The greed, vanity, pride, and ego fathered by suits treating artists like property, it's directly linked to the buying and selling of bodies that our country was founded upon. And there is nowhere that is more apparent than the state of Black Hollywood today.
A lot of stuff that's on today is coonery buffoonery.
I don't have to think about it. I've lived it. I've been the guy at the Oscars without my name being called.
And I'm number one on the call sheet. And then I have to go in and I have to hustle for my worth.
So many times, for the sake of diversity on network television, there's going to be a black guy or, a Latino guy.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost.
Hollywood too is a propaganda machine. It's not only, just worrying about dollars and cents. It's worrying about ideas, images.
When that show ended, it seemed like the industry was determined to present the antithesis of it on everything that it did.
Yes. A role that Ryan Gosling could play, I don't see why I shouldn't be considered for if race isn't an issue.
My work spoke for itself. And that's what we all want. We want to just be judged in this business just from our skill set.
As we walk through the history of Black representation in cinema, the barriers, limitations, stereotypes, and tropes that have plagued our depictions, I'd ask you to consider this complex web that holds all of this together. Financial pressures, struggles for agency, and lack of creative autonomy, we have to consider all sides for better, more nuanced storytelling. The goal of this video is not to demonize or generalize the actions of a few, but rather to contextualize the layers that make up this cycle of frustration and outrage towards one-dimensional pictures of Black life. And even for non-Black people, this is critical. In pushing back against normalizing stereotypes, we also illuminate the path to stop repeating the patterns that eventually apply to other groups. We understand that being disempowered by this cycle does not lead to meaningful change. It leads to repetition, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity. So if you're ready to challenge your mind, welcome to the self-inflicted wounds of Black Hollywood. This discussion is one that I've had variations of over the last few years, especially as I consider the state of media and my own aspirations in filmmaking. I had been a stage actor for many years, did tons of shows, and I was really making that transition into film. But after receiving my 20th or so audition request for the sassy Black friend or the angry Black woman, slave number 2, baby mama number 5, I didn't want to do it anymore.
But the actor is in fact Black, right?
I had a sobering realization. I could not change the way this industry sees me. I was angry because my gift as a performer and the purpose that I had to be a voice for the voiceless, none of it mattered to this industry behemoth because of my type, my voice. It didn't fit what they thought I should be. I could become bitter about things that were outside of my control and give up, or I could think deeply and strategically about the why behind this. Why are we seeing the same movies full of stereotypes again and again? Why do Black artists agree to participate in these projects? How are these depictions problematic rather than a barometer for issues in our community? And who's responsible for greenlighting this, and what do they want us to become by consuming it? Once I started to consider these questions, I realized this was way deeper than bad movies on Tubi. This is strategic, systemic, and pervasive. And if we're willing to look through Black Hollywood's past up to now, we might be able to understand how we got here, have less knee-jerk reactions to what comes out, and invest in producing what we want to see on a large scale. We'll start with the history of Black representation. Something Good, Negro Kiss. It's a silent film from 1898. A short clip that shows a couple kissing and holding hands, believed to depict the earliest on-screen kiss involving African Americans. It was progressive, not only for the Black joy, but also for breaking away from racist caricatures that were common during this time. Blackface and minstrel shows were a form of entertainment, where white actors blackened their faces to mimic enslaved Africans on plantations, with the popular Jim Crow character developing around 1830. These depictions of Black people as childlike, lazy, hypersexual, criminals, and cowards were used to justify slavery and the mistreatment of African Americans. Caricatures such as the Mammy, Jezebel, Sambo, Uncle Tom, and others had a lasting influence on the stereotypes we see today. However, there was pushback from Black people about their own representation, most notably with the mixed reception of performers Stephen Fetchit, Louise Beavers, and Juanita Moore in more stereotypical roles. As characterized by Jalen Thomas Robinson, seeing the presence of Black performers on screen spurs a double-sided outcome for representation. On the one hand, early filmmakers, they were faced with limited opportunities, exclusion in the creation of their stories. Stereotypes and all, if there was going to be any opening for the door for future entertainers, they were going to take one for the team. Hattie McDaniel is one such example after her Oscar win in 1939, where she faced scrutiny for her Mammy role in Gone with the Wind.
Sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race and to the motion picture industry.
On the flip side, though, There were artists who wanted to maintain integrity outside of the damaging depictions. Born to former slaves, director Oscar Micheaux created 44 films over his career, with his earliest surviving film, Within Our Gates, negating the critically acclaimed and racist The Birth of a Nation. But even he was heavily criticized on representation after his film, Body and Soul, portrayed a false teacher, a con artist posing as a pastor. It's so good that we've moved on from these highly unrealistic stories, huh?
No offense, but if you still think stocks, real estate, or crypto are the best passive income investments in today's economy, I'm sorry, but you've got...
I'm gonna have to come back and do part 2 on this video because I don't want to make this too long. But you see how everything adds up. So it starts with entertainment, and so the world, that goes out to the world, and not only to the world but to other nationalities in this country. So when they see that, that's how they see black people, and then when they see what they hear, and even other black people who never was raised in this country assume what they see, what they hear, and they don't know what our beginning is, and who is controlling it. Because see, images, news, social media, movies is a powerful thing. People go by what they see and what they hear, and they don't go by facts, or most people don't go by research. This is the reason why I made this video. Give you a whole conundrum of where it started at, and how is it moving in both circles, from the left to the right, with the video before that, where it is, where the greatness, where is the buffoonery, and where black people came into greatness. But they don't want to show the greatness. They want to keep the black Americans kind of like looking like they dumbfounded, and then it sends a spirit over America that all people, like you would do generalize any other people, must think and feel that way. And then some individuals, who, when we go different or do things here or go abroad, that's what they learn about. So this is so being a black American, we're understanding what racism really it transformed. But even though it can be played down like it's a stereotype, we know where it starts from. We know that how it interact, because some of the same questions, and some people say, I never knew black people, and it's like, wow, and it's kind of foreign dumb, because America painted the image. America controlled the images of different access to people, but one of the greatest like enemies, but at the same time admiration, is black Americans, because look what they've done. I mean, this, native indigenous people is the one, and maybe the Latino, Latino, but the main one was the black, because the black was always trying to strive in different areas of the country. Black people were always trying to do stuff at any time, and then jealousy and envious shut progress down. This is the reason why, and even up from the past into the present, they still have envious and jealousy at black people. They still have to cause a strife among black people. It is in the politics, it's in religion, it's in everything that they do. And it's centered around, it's like, what? And black people, most black people get fed up, like, why don't you go and go bother those other people? Why do you care about what we think, what we feel? We did nothing when it's only intellectually. You don't think that was smart. Intellectually, you taught through history. So black people, there's a segment of black. Why you keep coming around this? Why you keep doing this? And then it's a segment of black people saying, well, let's go be our own. And then you have to sit back and wonder, they'll put some red tape and probably sabotage it. Because look what they did in the past. because of envy and jealousy and privilege, so-called privilege, that they can't share it with other people. This is what Phil was talking about. And then, so we have to keep showing the images of why these young black youths don't even know that what stock they come from. You're not a degenerate. In other words, the N-word that you call each other in the street. See, the N-word that you call might sound like it's out of love, but when they hear the N-word among these other nations, it seems some kind of offense because you hearing it, but you calling yourself a degenerate among each other. So they feel like it's cool to be a degenerate. So let me get in your lingo, in your vernacular, and start speaking your lingo. So that's what the image is painted. And I'm sorry to say, some singers, some rappers, and some comedians don't help it out, because when you go over there, and so when you a black person that don't conduct yourself that way, they expect you to go to their parts of the world because they seen video, they seen TV, they seen what they heard by, and maybe some person went over there and was ignorant and told them about you. And so when you get among the people, you don't know what's going on. So you constantly, a black American has to constantly prove himself, his or herself, what it is, what we do, because the degeneracy, and that started with the last one through films, media, and thing. So that's why when you see it on the news, it's like, man. And really, what it comes down to, when it comes to some black people, the thing about slavery passes down, the mental strain, because we're still in bearing generations after generations after generations. So that's why we restrain. Some of us restrained about going to certain areas because it was restrained in our mind. And even though it's that America's America, but in America, this towns, you will get harassed if you're black to this day, like it was in the past. When you see people doing sundown towns, you think those towns that stop? No, there are still towns black people cannot, in areas they can't live in America, even though this is a country that they live in. They will get harassed, or it could be worse. So America ain't always free, but yet they put their life on the line to die for a segregated America, and just this price on foreigners. How can that be? Because it has to show an image of a delusion, and what we perpetuate to our representatives that go over different parts of the world and try to colonize different places in the world, in the Middle East and Africa. The spirit of representation come from out and went over there. That's what you see. That's that part, and that's why this many places around the world is angry at America, because the same spirit has they see it manipulating in their politics and way they want to do business, and we live and we up under it trying to get justice, and but they'll give it to a people when citizens and sovereign and collective deals right. We'll give it to these people, but these people that we put into slavery for hundreds, 400, 500 years now, their skin color don't matter. Besides, and then they put the delusion that they send a representative when we got them in certain positions that don't mean nothing. But the vast majority is still in low-key positions, like other people in the planet that have been trying to rise up out of the conditions since the beginning of time. So this is the reason why we feel the way we do, because we're getting fed up. And I mean, there's other group of people that have been in poverty, but the black man, black woman have suffered not only poverty, but the opposition of the skin, the stereotype, which came from this. So I hope this was very educational, and I don't know if I'll get no copyright strike, but I just wanted to break it in peace. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe. See you on next video.